But sometimes you got to do that, Barb.
Right. The TV as the babysitter.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
All right, Neil, it's 1:30. I guess we can rock and roll.
All right, sounds good, sir.
Roll call, please.
Yep. Gary Delvo. Oh. Gary's here.
Yes.
Matt Schiller. Matt, I think he said he was excused. I believe he wasn't going to be able to make it. Alderdorf.
Here.
Debbie Dean.
Here.
Kathy Hinkmas.
Here.
Melanie Parma.
Here.
Bridget Reardon. Sorry. There we go.
I think she's excused too.
I think she's excused too. So I believe we do have a quorum then, sir.
Okay, a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve.
Alderdorf,
Second.
second by Kathy. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Oh, Matt joined us.
Oh, Matt's in. Okay, hey, Matt. How are you, sir?
Hey, Matt, welcome.
Thank you.
Yay, Matt.
So regular business, number one, consideration of possible action on a new development agreement with Tune-In Properties for up to $5 million in quick assistance for completion of the demolition of existing structures and development of approximately 209 market rate apartments in the former JBS Packerland site at 2580 University Avenue, parcel 21-301, and replacing the previous agreement with TMD Properties. Somewhere along the line, I want to go in closed session because I've got some questions.
Wait, what?
In that regard. But before that, Neil, do you want to set the pace here?
Yep, absolutely. Again, this item was just discussed.
Everybody,
What?
Bridget.
Yes.
Bridget is here.
Oh, excellent. Okay, perfect.
Oh, Bridget is here. Okay,
Perfect.
everybody's here.
Full house. Excellent.
Yeah. On a special meeting. That's great.
We appreciate it, you guys. Thank you. So,
Bridget, we haven't met. Hi and welcome. Gary, thank you.
Hello. Hi, Gary. Nice to meet you.
All right.
All right.
Neil, please.
okay, this was both of these items on the agenda here for this afternoon were discussed here 2 weeks ago, but what we've brought forth is actually brought the actual documents back to you for your review and hopefully blessing here today. The first one here is obviously the Tune-In Properties Agreement. This is for the JBS Packerland, also known as University Heights, or the DeVillers project. Essentially, what would be going on here is this would be Tune-In would be taking the place of TMD Properties of DeVillers and proceeding with the project. So we had a couple things we needed to do in terms of obviously revising the agreement, which I'll go through here. It's, if you want to do that in closed session, Mr. Chair, we can do that. Otherwise, we can just go through it here in open session. I don't think there's anything from that regard that we need closed session discussion for regarded specifically to the changes, but certainly will be up to your discretion on that. But the other key item that was the important part was actually figuring out how to basically disengage from the original development agreement and enter into the new one without having a gap. So we wanted to make sure that we actually had covered, the city was covered in terms of making sure that someone was still on the hook to proceed with that. So what has been presented to you today is one is the actual draft document, which we will go through here shortly. Also is the preliminary notice of termination, essentially to TMD Properties, that has been prepared by our legal counsel, that would be going out that essentially is a conditional termination stating if the property is, and basically we execute a development agreement with a new developer, that it will be essentially be a notice of basically a lack of performance from the original developer and then terminating that specific agreement, allowing us to move forward with the new one. So Attorney Chavez is here today if you have any specific questions on that, but that has been attached. I guess, Mr. Chair, if you'd like me to, I can go in and just kind of review the key updates to the document that I think the authority would be most interested in.
Yes, in particular, ones that have changed since our last review of this.
Yep, absolutely. We do have a couple of items. We've had some discussions with the developer. We'll go ahead and get those here. Let's see. Let me move that to here. So hopefully everyone can see the RDA draft on their screen, hopefully.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay. We will be updating Tune-In Properties. There will be an LLC established for this, so we'll be updating that throughout the document. Wanted to make sure of that one. We have some definitions to clear up in terms of master parcel and property definition, but that's largely a Scribner's error to be working with the attorney's office on. So the description of the property is still the same. Again, the assessed values are presented. These have been pretty standard in terms of this. The only little bit unusual on this one is that there's 3 different sections in here because there's the original base value, the value once the 2 buildings from TMD have been built, and then obviously one has built all of their projects. So we actually have 3 points in time we're measuring with this agreement. So that's why there are 3 sections. Usually there are only 2. So we've talked about this is largely a pay-as-you-go district. Essentially, is what we're doing. There is a $1.5 billion project grant that was already provided to TMD properties as part of this.
Yep.
The way the pay-as-you-go project is set up, that $1.5 million will be fully repaid prior to any disbursements to Tunin properties. So we have positioned essentially to recover those funds in advance of providing any direct assistance to the developer, which we feel is very advantageous to the city. We're excited about that. It was good.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's see some of the exhibits. So a lot of the definitions, I think there's nothing too critical on these. We are messing with the definition of qualified expenditures a little bit, but I will talk about that when we get down there. We talk about the pay-go reimbursement. This is an 80-20 project. We're pursuing repayment of the upfront project grant, as I said, and then once that is repaid, there's an 80-20 split between the developer and the city going forward at that point. So there is a cap essentially on this one. That is, we'll talk about that is a $5 million cap. You'll see a reference to $6.5 million here, but that includes the $1.5 million that was already allocated to the project from the original project. So again, recovering all of the debt service obligation on our own project grants, it comes first. This language here, highlighted here, was newly added. This essentially allows for some flexibility in case the valuation does not quite come in at full $22 million. So they wouldn't qualify for a full amount. They would qualify for a reduced percentage of increment if they at least hit $17,600,000, which we really have not any concerns. As long as they build what they say they're going to build, we really don't think this will come into play. We're assuming it will be a full 80-20% going forward. But this does allow, in this environment, because of the questionable of being able to get materials, of labor, of other things for some reason, if the project doesn't quite get built as fast as they'd like, this still allows them to recapture some increment if in fact that happens. And it does not change the overall cap or the end date of when the assistance would end. So there really isn't any addition. So this is also language I think that the RDA first saw in the 200 North Monroe agreement here that was recently approved. So this is exact similar type of language that was essentially brought forward from that agreement and entered into this one. So a couple of highlights on this on the screen here. These were the text did not match the percentage. The numbers here was a Scribner's error, so we had to just change those. So 64 and 64 and 72 and 72. So those match. That was just a correction on our part. And just a note that we are allowing we are including the project valuation of those first 2 buildings from TMD properties in the overall, simply because we are going back far enough that including that project grant, that same time frame, then we felt it was only fair to allow those valuation on those particular properties to be included in the overall valuation as well. So we mentioned the pay-go disbursements. The other incentive, just acknowledging that this was a previous grant that was involved in the city. Qualified expenditures, I mentioned we are looking at, we've asked in conversations with the developer, they've asked if we would add like driveway, sidewalks, and trails essentially as infrastructure to be added as eligible expenditures. Again, staff really did not have any issues with including those for this particular site. In fact, we feel especially is actually a kind of a key amenity to this site and connecting this area for the residential development to the parks area that is in this immediate area. So we talk about some limitations. Again, this is capped at $6,500,000, includes the $1.5 million, so it is really a $5 million pay-go incentive. We talk about 80% being the top maximum going in a year. The temporal limitation, this is when the developer was actually asking for a little bit of consideration to go past the year 2038, the expenditure end of the expenditure period for the TIF. And staff has kind of said we'd like to keep that, maintain it within that expenditure period if at all possible. However, we did say that we were open to, if at some point, for whatever reason, if there was a performance situation where the project was done, all the other obligations were met, if it looked like they would be needing an additional year of increment, that certainly we would encourage them to come back and request an amendment to the agreement at that time. But we didn't feel that we feel it's most likely going to meet all the criteria, and an extension will not be required. So at this time, staff is recommending that we do not change from 2038, and we'll address that if and when it's needed. The request that they did make, we asked for a concept plan to be submitted by September 1st, simply because of negotiations with the existing developer and just kind of overall schedules. Asked if they could move that to December 31st, 2021. They did not adjust any of their other dates and schedules that are included in the agreement, so staff did not have any concerns with moving that to 12/31/21. Item, I think we mentioned the bike path. I think the engineering staff or consultant probably for the developer took a look at the area out here. There is a substantial grade change out in this area, in addition to some possible water crossing that might need to be done. So they were not really in a position to kind of want to jump on and just blank check without knowing how much it's really going to do and whether or not it's actually feasible. So we kind of wanted to add language that says, assuming confirmation between the city and the developer that this is the scope, that would be basically then an eligible project that we would consider for them. So it's just making sure that it is actually a designable, buildable trail extension. So there might be if for some reason the grade is not what we expect it to be or is problematic, there may be a different route that is chosen that simply be approved then by Public Works or the Parks Department to allow that to move forward. We would still like to see the connection there. We think that would be a great amenity for this area.
Yes.
The note number 3 here is about a utility plan demonstrating that water and sewer can be conserved, but specifically that water pressure is available. This is a note to the city as well as it is to the developer, is ensuring that adequate water pressure is there to serve the number of units that are going to be put into this area. So it's just kind of putting everyone on notice that we all need to make sure that there is adequate water pressure for this area. The CSM is going to be something that's going to be required prior to April 1st. Simply, we're looking at, obviously, at least at this current time, the developer, the Tunin Properties is looking at developing the remainder of the original master parcel, while the TMD Properties is going to retain their 2 properties. So if, in fact, that is the way it goes, then will be required, obviously, a land division between those 2 owners will be required to be done. So this is just acknowledging that land division will be required. A lot of the other dates are all tied to April 1st, 2022, including project budget, construction documents, the overall development budget. RDA members will see this highlighted section here. We'll remember our public arts contribution here. This was one we had to actually consult with Attorney Chavez on, as this was, obviously a project that was started prior to that requirement. But this is actually a new agreement with a new developer. So it was felt that this was, based on RDA actions, this was something that we needed to add into the agreement. So we've had a preliminary conversation with the developer. At this point, they understand it would probably be a $220,000 amount at some point in terms of value. So they're evaluating some options in terms of how they think they might be able to address that. Although they may have some questions or some comments on that as we go through. Just a reminder that RDA approvals are needed for the concept plan and some of the other documents in here, and that those are actually still separate from the zoning approvals that are needed. So we talk about the compliance with zoning, proof of equity, proof of financing. Again, all things that are pretty standard in other agreements that we have had in the past, by similar on the same timelines. A lot of our boilerplate language here to this point. Let me see if there was specifically, where's the next key amendment I wanted to make sure folks were aware of. Insurance is still the same. Risk insurance, general indemnity is all the same. All right, conditions precedent. Here we go here. Material change in documents, payment. Max offices, I apologize for scrolling through and through here on these default. These are the actual terms we have in terms of for failure to perform. One interest that was added, I think based on Gary's comment at the last meeting, we have suggested a personal guarantee requirement on here. However, further discussions with the developer, staff is questioning exactly if this is there's essentially like an outstanding finance liability at this point is essentially the upfront project grant. That is the $1.5 million. The developer has requested that this not be included at this point, citing the concession that they are essentially repaying all of that upfront as the very first thing before they get any. So I certainly would agree with that to that extent. Yeah, the real risk on certainly the personal guarantee helps when there is actually a borrowed amount. It does not have as much of an impact on a pay-as-you-go TIF model. Obviously, there's not a borrowed amount essentially to protect. So certainly looking forward to seeing what RDA members feel about that particular requirement to see if would like to see some flexibility on that. I think in terms of the way we've structured the minimum valuation guarantees in order to qualify for any assistance, including that prorated amount down and the fact that it gets paid back first, staff is certainly comfortable proceeding with that at a minimum, as a minimum requirement we feel at this point to proceed. And it's certainly an improvement over our current situation. But again, happy to discuss that further. We talked about termination of the agreement. Again, we mentioned the 2038 year being kind of the last year we need to do anything there. That was the last kind of real key item that was a change in the agreement. So with that, certainly available to answer any questions.
I've got a number of questions, but the ones I have I want to cover in closed session. Is there anything in general that people want to ask before we go into closed session?
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Motion by Allerdorf and second by Matt. To go in closed session. A roll call, please, Neil.
Okay. Yep. We'll do that here. Delvo?
Yes.
Schuler?
Yes.
Dorf?
Yes.
Dean?
Yep.
Inkfus?
Her lips moved, but
okay.
she's muted.
Fair enough. Parma?
Yes.
Reardon?
Didn't know I was on mute.
There we go. I think Bridget's same thing. So, so I do believe that we have the developer is here. Do you want Schuler?
Yes.
Dorf?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Inkfus?
Yes.
Parma?
Yes.
Reardon?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now we just need to see.
To go back to open session. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
We have
Aye.
to vote in open session.
Yeah, we will vote. Yeah, we'll make a motion and vote in open session. We need to do a roll call again, though.
Okay.
Yep, we'll do that.
Hold on, that all needs to be done on the record.
Okay. Okay, so we'll go back in. Okay.
I mean, the
Yep. So if Will, could you go ahead and get us back into open, please?
Right. Okay.
See, looks like folks are coming back in now.
Says we are live.
All
Will
right,
said.
perfect. Yep, excellent. All right, we will do so. Could we just ask someone to remake the motion to go back into open, please?
I move to go back into open session.
I'll second.
Kathy and Melanie, a motion to go back to open session. We will do a roll call.
Delvo,
Yes.
Schuler,
Yes.
Dorf,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Inkfus,
Yes.
Parma,
Yes.
Reardon.
Yes.
We are back in open session.
First of all, I'd like to thank the group for some excellent questions in closed session, and I think we're ready to proceed. There's some questions or comments that we want to ask in open session.
And just to note that Mr. John Van Dyke from the developer is available to answer for questions if so desired by the body.
Okay. Yes, Alder, please.
Wasn't there the one question about the water pressure someone wanted to ask?
Yes. Okay. We have in the contract that we assuming adequate water pressure, and we're recommending that we put what is the water pressure and get that recommendation from the water department or the fire, or whoever, so that it's actually a measurable figure.
It appears that John is still attempting to connect to his audio here, so he's not
Okay.
he's not fully in here yet. But
Ah,
I have to go.
Yeah, once he's on, we'll, Kathy, ask the question again, please.
yep.
Once we got her.
let's see. Dropped him an email, see if he's having some concerns here.
If not, something Neil, you could work out with him on the side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we would,
Okay.
right now staff would recommend, adjusting that, adding language to be a specific pounds per square inch as recommended by either the fire department and or the water utility.
Okay. Yeah, we might not be able to get him aboard. If not, Neil, I'm sure you can work that out.
Can I make a motion to move this forward then, as discussed in closed session?
Motion by Alder Dorf to move forward.
Second.
Second by Matt, that we move forward as discussed in closed session. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? It's a great project. Good work, to staff and everybody involved. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Believe it or not, Neil, you're going to have to read agenda item 2. When I printed it out, I only printed out agenda item 1.
Not
So
a problem. No, that's okay. Not a problem here. For regular business, item D2, consideration of possible action to request to amend the development agreement with Whitney School Development LLC, moving the timing of their first PAYGO TIF payment for the Whitney School Apartments or Lofts development at 215 North Webster, parcel 9-112, from 2022 to 2021.
Okay. One last comment on the previous agenda. I want to thank Kathy for that catch. That was a good catch, Kathy. But anyway, back to agenda item 2. Neil, proceed.
Absolutely. Can provide a brief overview. Again, this was discussed in concept here 2 weeks ago. Essentially what we're looking for here is essentially authorization to proceed with basically making the first PAYGO payment to Whitney School Lofts here in 2021 versus 2022. The situation that happened is essentially because of the way the timing on TIF and valuations work, they basically got their occupancy permit like 2 weeks into January. But all the assessments obviously are set 1/1 of each year. So they just missed the calendar year. So the project was substantially complete. It was assessed as such. There was actually a substantial amount of increment that was added to this project. So they're essentially asking for that, because of that substantial completion and that value being added, if they could basically initiate their initial payment starting here this year. I think I've had Director Ellenbecker did take a look at it, so there is adequate cash flow. There isn't really a situation on that, and it really does not increase the city's contribution to the project. That is still capped. So staff is recommending approval of the amendment to allow for their first PAYGO payment to be in 2021.
Neil, just help me real quick. I thought we had this in the last agenda item, and we approved it last.
We approved it.
We did, but we did not have specific language in front of you. Now the actual amendment is actually before you in your packet. So the specific language is in front of you. So we are being a little conservative and having you guys look at it twice. You guys did approve it conceptually, but we are not comfortable proceeding with that without you guys actually seeing the actual amendment document. So
Very good. Very good. We have it. I'll entertain a motion.
I'd make the motion that we go ahead and make the first PAYGO payment in 2021 rather than 2022 as stipulated in the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion by Matt, second by Kathy. Any other comments or questions in regard to the motion? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? So carried. Very good. So Neil, when can we start having our meetings in the Harry Meyer room again?
well, the Harry Meyer room is certainly the challenge, unfortunately, Gary. I think we probably can get back to being in person. I did send an email out briefly this afternoon. Apparently the one technological issue we were having in terms of was actually being able to record the meeting. So unfortunately, if it's a Zoom meeting like this, it's by itself is essentially, we are able to record it and have that available for the public to review afterwards. But again, the council chambers is one area that is set up to actually handle that sort of video recording for the overall meeting, especially if we have someone in person, specifically to come into the meeting. If we had someone from the public come in and attend the meeting, we would have the ability to actually record them and their comments in the council chambers. And we do not currently have that in 604. So we are back to trying to figure out exactly how to maybe either accommodate that in 604 or to require us to move back to either hold it in the council chambers is kind of our options at this point. So unfortunately, we are being limited by our technology at this point. So certainly, again, staff is certainly open to either suggestion. Area, if the priority is to meet in person, we probably, at least for the foreseeable future, we would probably need to use the council chambers to make that happen. So until we've figured out a way to actually handle the video capability and record the meeting in 604, we don't have that as an option right now.
Okay.
And a quick question, Neil. Did something change in requirements for video recording? Because we always used to hold meetings in 604. So I'm trying to understand, did something change?
Yeah, I think it has to do with specifically, well, there's still social distancing things we're still trying to encourage as part of that too, Matt. But it is the combination of the Zoom connection plus the video connection that we're trying to essentially to establish. That is that. If it was just, we weren't doing the Zoom factor, I think we would have the ability to facilitate that recording a little easier. So it is a frustrating thing to be coming out of the pandemic and having to figure out how to wrap our arms around this to make it available. But it is, something we are certainly, I think we know we can make it happen, but if, at least for the foreseeable future, it would have to be in the council chambers.
I get it, the aspect of Zoom and video recording, because I know we were doing the video recording before. We weren't
right.
Okay.
Right. I mean, are any of the members of the RDA uncomfortable going in on site?
No, I mean, I don't think so. The only question would be the awkwardness of being in the chamber. I mean, we've had some meetings in there. It's just not quite as handy as being in 604. So.
Right. But my point is if we said we're going to come back, we're going to meet monthly in 604 and we're not going to do it via Zoom, is that an issue?
I hope not.
I mean, can we as a committee make that decision or no?
Well, I think it's an issue for social distancing, though.
Right.
Because unless everyone's vaccinated, right, will there be a mask requirement? Like, I remember the old days of 604. I mean, the table was completely full, right? And then the chairs were full in the back. So I think the problem with 604 is just that distancing. But, I don't see the mayor on here anymore. Vanessa, I don't know if you have any comments with regards to if the RDA makes that decision or if that's a city hall council decision about that, but.
About attendance or about masks?
About attending, like if, let's say the RDA is like, look, we want to meet in 604. And that would, let's say, result in maybe not social distancing. Can the RDA make that change?
The RDA can choose to meet in person, but where in the building they would meet is going to be based on the capacity requirements, and then also and the social distancing requirements and the technology requirements. Those are going to trump everything. So it's really, if you guys want to do it in person, it's really how can the city accommodate it? Not necessarily 604, but how can we accommodate it?
Okay.
Okay.
A more complicated answer than we were hoping for, Kathy. So
I think we're going to continue meeting in Zoom then until we can get a room that's a little more accommodating than the chamber room. But I'm open to suggestions. If people want us, we can meet in the chamber with Zoom, whatever.
But certainly encourage this. Let's keep this as a discussion item as we go forward. Let's keep this on the front of the radar. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Anything else, Matt? Other next meeting, Neil, other than our next meeting being August 10th at 1:30.
Yep, just that is kind of what we're looking at right now, and we're evaluating in terms of what we think we might have for agenda items at that point. The one item that is out there that I think we may need some discussion on is Will Peters on our staff has, let me know that there's been, I think it's 253 2 funding has been set aside for the city of Green Bay, which can be applied for once the previous allocation has been spent. So there might be some options, some opportunity to discuss that in terms of exactly how, what sort of funding might be required and what sort of things we could use those funds on. We may be bringing that forward to have that discussion with this body here at whenever that next meeting is, which it could be the 10th at this point. It would be our regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay.
So right now, I think that's the only item we have on the agenda that would be stated for that one, but we'll certainly take a look and let you know if any other items do come forward that we need some action.
Neil?
Okay, with all that in mind, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
Bridget, I think, made the motion and seconded by Kathy. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Hold to adjourn. Another great meeting and a great project.
Yes.
I know John.
Thank you, everybody, for your flexibility and doing the second
everyone.
meeting this month.
Yeah.
It was appreciated. So thank you.
I noticed John was on. Now he's off again, I guess. But anyway, a compliment on
He's
the
on.
project, and I don't think it'd be an issue
Yes.
with the change that you're suggesting. But we're very excited about that project and full speed ahead.
Good to work for. So we're very appreciative. So there's John. He's
Thanks,
giving us a
John.
thumbs up. So
Hey, I'm glad you got that, John. We're excited.
Yeah.
We worked with
we'll get that. We'll get the agreement language finally cleaned up and ready for council then. So
fantastic.
thank you, everybody.